Hey man, how you
How's it
doing?
going?
Good.
I'm upright.
You're upright. I know you've
Yeah.
been a busy week. Where you been?
Yeah, so I've been in Montreal for a couple days. I was at a conference called CMS Connect 24. Giannis Boy runs a fantastic series of conferences in like the CMS space. I always feel like a little bit of an outsider there because I'm like, we complement a CMS, but to be there as a CMS expert, like sorta talk what I'm talking, but great to be at the conference now. We have a place up in Vermont, so got here last night. Happy to talk to you, and very excited that 2 days from now, taking the family to Disney for a full week. So busy
Oh,
weeks.
I don't know what part of that story that I'm more jealous about. I don't know if it's the Disney trip or your Vermont location or the fact that you're at the event, but that's awesome. Well, good to catch up with you, man. I've been looking forward to this, and it's been a great like several weeks. I know you've been on the road, I've been on the road, and so um I know I've been looking forward to this chat in particular because there's a lot of exciting things happening. But before we dig into that, like let's start with, just tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, your background, what led you to, Faster, all that fun stuff, and then we'll dig in.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Ryan Breen. I'm CTO at Fastr. Let's see, my career most of the time been in businesses roughly shaped like this one, enterprise, SaaS focused, just trying to help businesses solve problems. First 10 years of that career, I like to say I was in the web performance testing salt mines. I misspent my entire 20s looking at network waterfalls and traces. And yeah, it's a different business, different focus, different thing we're trying to help folks accomplish at Faster. But it still all comes down to what is that end user experience? What are our customers trying to make sure that their shoppers see? How do you get faster? How do you get better? How do you give people better content? Where it happens real quick, but there's no degradation of the quality, the visual fidelity. You're trying to tell a cool story, helping people find that right balance. That's what I think is the common thread across all those businesses I've been involved with.
Love it, love it, love the background, and couldn't have picked a better partner to have here at Faster. And it's a daily pleasure to kind of work with you. So I know you've got a lot of experience and a lot of exciting things to share with our viewers today. So let's dig in. I mean, I think
Sure.
it's an interesting era in user experience. There's a lot of things happening kind of in the macro that I know everyone is certainly aware of. This is kind of one of those like moments in time where there's this inflection point happening in the web. Super exciting one. Every 10 years or so, you see one of these. And this one is another, but it's also kind of very different where AI is really kind of coming through and really changing everything from the user experience, all the way down. And so we work with, a lot of retailers and a lot of brands, and certainly, they're in the middle of this, this transformation as well, thinking about their sites, thinking about their storefronts, thinking about how they interact with their customers in this next era. And this one, I think, you and I have been in the industry for a while now. I think is arguably one of the bigger shifts that we've seen. And so this era for me is like super exciting, and we're right in the middle of helping customers through it. And so I'd like to kind of throw it to you on that macro point of view, and like, how are you viewing, Ryan, like what's happening? How do you view this moment?
Yeah, this was a huge topic, of course, at the conference. Everybody's finding their way through this right now. And this very much to me feels like that William Gibson neuromancer quote where the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. It is impacting, or at least it's arrived for certain disciplines and domains quicker than others. And so, what I'm seeing, and I'll reflect just a little bit on the day to day, what we do in our jobs here, building a platform at Faster. I've never felt like this in my life. I've never felt this agility, this speed. I mean, we've seen it just in the acceleration of our roadmap and what we're able to deliver over the last 6 months, which is materially different from what we delivered in the prior 2 years. And that comes down to really aggressive embrace of AI just to help us build the platform. I mean, purely the software engineering benefits of it are huge. What I do observe from that, and this is something that I heard a lot from folks at the conference, you're building a SaaS platform. You're building something once for the benefit of a broader audience. You can move so fast because you have this really, really short iteration loop. But for an individual project, for an individual, hey, I'm working on building out this one site, or I'm helping our customers because they're looking to launch a new e-commerce business, that hasn't gotten that much faster. I see folks kind of held back by, well, I'm trying to bolt all this AI fast whizzy stuff onto this super heavyweight. I've got fat React applications and developer handoff, design handoff type of workflows. Everything still has this assumption that I'm going team to team, handoff to handoff. Those are the things that are really slowing down that embrace of AI. So you see in a domain where you can carry everything from idea to fruition yourself transformatively fast. When it's person handing to AI, to hand to a person, to hand to AI, to hand to a site, we're not seeing those benefits quite as much. And so a lot of the conversation at the conference, there were some really interesting threads of, well, why am I not seeing what you're seeing? Why does it seem like things are so much easier and faster than they are for us? And it really comes down to how many of those handoffs, how many of those loops? Is it I can accomplish a lot because I got this amazing AI copilot, but I'm still working under this expectation that I got to hand it off to 4 other people to get anything done. I'll throw it back to you a little bit because I've talked a fair amount about what the AI implications are, and mostly in my specific domain, which is building software. In domains you work in, you're running a business. You've been here for 9 months. Have you seen it transform what we do, but also the different parts of the business that you're focused on shepherding?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I think I haven't seen a moment like this, really the last year or two, maybe, where workflow has completely changed, right? So I think you're hitting on it where I think till this moment, much of the workflow has been handing it from person to person, along inside of a company. And so I've been very impressed with how you've approached, the development org, and really rethinking, really rethinking workflow and how work gets done and how these tools can actually help and empower people. So I'm certainly seeing it inside of our business, and I think you're leading the charge with that, where we're looking at, really kind of thinking differently about workflow and roles, and where does technology and tools help us in, along the way. And I think this moment's really kind of catching a lot of businesses off guard. I think especially larger companies are really having, I think, a much harder time thinking about how the workflow has changed, and how now AI can be viewed as, an enabler in a process along the way. Certainly not at a point where it's going to take over creative work. I still think, and we see this in our customer base, right, where creatives are really, I think it's going to be defining a new chapter for creatives, and these tools are super, super powerful. Whether you're talking about creative from a developing software, building software point of view, or if you're talking about like building a site, building a storefront, creating, any type of, visuals, videos, graphics, etc. I think the creatives are really going into a really interesting point in time where they have tools like they've never had before to be able to get more done. And I do think it's actually resulting in being able to get more done for the right type of role and the right type of individual. So you can really 10x, but it's not, obviously everyone's being 10x. It's, really only kind of the special roles and the special adopters. So it's an exciting moment. I think there's a lot of talk about AI, but there's not enough talk around, the real world changes that are happening, and where we're actually seeing real work evolve and change. And I think internally, what you're doing with you and your team around what we've built over the last 18 months, it's incredible. Like, you've probably taken 5 or 10 years worth of innovation and put it down into, a very fast amount of time. So that's exciting. I think we're seeing it as it's played out with, customers and the feedback, on our product. So it's an exciting time. And I think a lot is changing, starting with, people's roles and workflow and how we view technology.
Yeah, I think and this is probably something where we have second, third, fourth mover advantage, or the advantage of being an agile, nimble, smaller company, is we can embrace a radically different workflow, and we can say, hey, this is a moment that we can't let pass by because we're not reconsidering certain verities of how you run things. And just one specific example from my domain, and then also what I've seen from customers, I think we've seen this real blurring now of QA and customer support. I just see that you're able to move so much faster, both from, hey, what are we hearing from 10 of our customers that are looking to do something really novel, something really interesting, and how do we get that into production in days, weeks, not months? That does break a lot of the past assumptions of, well, QA follows this process where product management comes up with an idea. We figure out the 3 months it's going to take engineering to deliver on that. And then there's a really solid spec that QA can work through and make sure that it meets the business requirements. When you can respond as an engineering team in days, it gets real hard to say, well, we're going to document out everything we're going to do, particularly as the platform gets more and more sophisticated and you're able to embrace more and more customer cases that start to feel like they're sophisticated and nuanced. You really have to be in the trenches with our customers, supporting them directly, either on the customer support or solution engineering team, to also be just as much of a player in the QA discipline, to say, like, that's a change that's good, that's a change that's bad, because everything's going to be changing and you really need to have that hands-on expertise. And I think that's harder for a large organization. You imagine you have a 10-person QA team and a 10-person customer support team. They've never directly worked together. And so what's that look like to be forward-looking and learn that you might need to blend those things? So I think that's some of the discrepancy we see in adoption across industries.
I totally agree. And I think now we're getting to, probably the topic that a lot of our, a lot of our viewers are probably wanting to get into, where we're talking about getting faster, site speed, faster page performance. But I think you're on a topic of like faster innovation cycle too, right? Getting content out to your site, testing it faster, QAing it faster. Like, everything is moving really at a rapid pace now. And I think, we just talked about internally how we're working on that, but we're also, seeing it with our customers, where they can get things out to market, out to their sites and their stores, and A/B test those and split test them and see what's working much faster than maybe the legacy process that's had all of these different handoffs. And I know we want to get into talking about the technical side, which is the Google algorithm changes and things that we're doing to actually make the performance of the page and the site faster. But I think we're on a really interesting topic here, which is around the process of getting things on your site is much faster. So maybe just some comments on that, just what you're seeing. And you talk to a lot of customers, like I do, around just the speed to get it to market is completely changed.
Yeah, and I wrote an article for CMS Critic, I think about 6 months ago, about just this impedance mismatch that we're seeing in the different domains within a business. And I haven't seen that change at all. If anything, I've seen it get more stark and pronounced at the conference the last couple of days. It feels like every knowledge working discipline can get that 10x gain in performance, and performance in time to market, or time to realize new ideas, time to iterate on things. So if I'm creative, if I'm marketing, I can come up with a billion different campaigns. But all of those 5, 10 different parts of your business that can come up with that many ideas, that much analytics, that much data that they want to take action on in a day, all of it is still getting funneled through a channel that is still really bandwidth constrained, which is the historical model of getting changes to a site. And the biggest challenge that I see right now is the best we've figured out how to do as a web development community, as a community that's supporting people's front ends of their e-commerce sites, is to throw larger and more cumbersome and more sophisticated JavaScript frameworks and libraries. And so you can try and make things 5% more effective per year. I've taken somebody's ideas and components in Figma and those designs, routing them down through some React hairball that gets packaged up and put on a site and is fairly inscrutable for anyone to understand. But that's getting 5% more effective per year. Everybody who's trying to funnel things into that channel is getting 10x more performant, getting 10x the output. And it is just this huge impedance, this huge just flood routed through this really small channel. And the only way that channel is getting 5% faster is getting fatter and fatter JavaScript libraries that make your site slower as they're trying to increase your velocity. And it's really this, choose one or the other. You're either going to get more stuff to your site faster because you got more JavaScript happening on the client, or you're going to be iterating on these sites that feel real boring because you just can't do that much on them.
Yeah, I think this is such an important point, right? So everything is kind of funneling through a choke point. And I think what makes us different, and really you and I have talked to a lot of customers. We work with a lot of big brands and retailers that have high traffic, and obviously the stakes are very, very high for their sites. And I've just been blown away at the feedback that we've been getting from our customers and over the flexibility and the control that we give back to their marketers and their merchandisers to control what is on the front end of their site. And so I think in addition to kind of the site speed performance aspects that we're about to talk about, there's an architecture difference here in terms of how we approach things and the empowerment that we're giving. And I think you just hit on it, whereas in legacy models, it's about really kind of designing something, handing that off to a set of developers who have to code it up in some technologies and some JavaScripts that obviously make a site heavy. Maybe you can talk just a little bit about what makes us different so that we can go directly past developers, no developer handoffs are needed, and go directly to a site, but yet have it be a robust, QA, high performant process. Just talk about the architecture that you brought here, and then later, I think in the talk we'll get into page speed and performance and content delivery and all those benefits too.
Yeah, it's just a fundamentally different approach that we're taking to the way that you create e-commerce sites and the way you move from idea, ideation, creation, design, marketing, merchandising to something that's a living, breathing e-commerce application on the front end. There's absolutely a lot of work for developers to do, but what we see and what I think has gotten such a huge response from our customers who've embraced this is that you can never move fast enough if you're forcing your developers to be part of that tight loop of I've got an idea and I want to get that live. Developers go build me something and go push a button that's going to ship that to production. You can just never move fast enough because there's a handoff to folks who are not really excited. I've been that developer. It's not a great place to be, to feel like you're bottlenecking and failing to accurately translate somebody's idea to the front of an e-commerce site using the tooling available to us, which is, I'm going to turn this into components in whatever JavaScript framework is available these days. And it was really interesting. This is part of that little bit fish out of water experience that I have when I'm at a CMS conference or I'm hearing other folks in the industry talk about the constraints that they're living under, because there is just this assumption, and it dates back to the 90s. Well, that's the way the world works. The folks can have ideas and they can prototype things, but to make something really live on a site, well, the adults have to show up and hand code it and turn it into some application on the front end. You have to create or rethink that entire model and say, no, it's developer handoff in reverse. Developers bring in those integrations, bring in the 30 different vendors that you want to have part of that business's e-commerce composable ecosystem. Get those into a platform where you're out of the way now, where you've done your work, and everybody in the business, marketing, creative, merchandisers, they could say, hey, the analytics are saying it would be great if we do this radically different thing on our PLPs or our PDPs. Someone comes in from Google. I want to show them related products above the fold on my PDP. That's a wacky idea. You would never ask somebody to go code if it's going to take them a month to get that change live to the site. You can only start thinking and moving like that if you've moved your developers out of being that choke point and out of that bottleneck.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think what's super exciting and the examples that I'm seeing of our customers taking their category pages, their product landing pages, even their PDPs, and really next leveling and elevating the design and the personalization and making them those dynamic experiences and giving that control back to, the business team that understands, the buyers and understands the patterns and the behaviors and the traffic through their site. It's really impressive, and it's really empowering many of our customers, and they're doing just some incredible things to really level up Shopify, Salesforce, Magento, BigCommerce, and all of these well-known commerce platforms, and to really bring to life the experience for their customers. And we've seen just some incredible metrics from our customers around how this is really helping them with conversion and really helping them to improve really improve revenue on their site. So I want to go to the topic, and we can dig into, I think, what we just talked about maybe in our next talk, where we get into some of the creative designs and experiences that are really coming to life. But I'd like to dig into, I think site speed, page performance is so important to customers and to converting visitors. It's probably the number one thing that leads to an abandoned visitor or somebody leaving your site would be poor page performance or poor site speed. And our customer base, we're talking about big customers, big brands, a lot of traffic. So again, the stakes are high here, but we've been really seeing some really impressive metrics, and we had a release recently around this. So I want to dig in and kind of get your perspective on, kind of the more technical aspects of, what's happening beneath the hood to make, really the site speed and the performance really next level. So, maybe you can just give a couple examples of some of the performance improvements that we've seen. You don't have to name names if not comfortable for customers, but we've seen just a dramatic improvement on some performance metrics. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, and we can dig into the details.
Yeah, I'm so happy to nerd out on performance and talk about the work that we've done. And the really cool thing about it, I talk to, I would say, probably 50% of my conversations with customers, particularly given my background, we're talking about performance and how can we help and how can we improve the way your site, your core web vitals of your site. The really cool thing is people care about this now. And I mentioned the start of my career, that first 10 years, we were educating people on, well, why does performance matter to you? Really cool thing Google did 5-6 years back is they started to fold your core web vitals in as a metric that is part of the signal that they use for ranking you as compared to other sites that may have similar search terms. And core web vitals, it is a bit of a moving target. There are some specific metrics that Google has historically included in core web vitals. And the three that existed up until a year ago, or really just earlier this year, it was high level. You could think of it as one is about how quickly you're able to start drawing imagery to the page. That's your largest contentful paint. One is how much is that page dancing around as it's loading. That's your cumulative layout shift. But where Google, I think, has historically struggled is how do we come up with a metric that accurately reflects how much overhead is JavaScript adding to a page? How much interactivity penalty do I take by choosing one way of delivering my site versus another? And in the past, there was a metric called first input delay, and it was just the worst at assessing that penalty because I do not know how to fail at that metric. I've never seen a single site that was red on that metric. And so it's just really inadequate to the task of saying this is slower than another page. You see so many people wrestling with like, well, largest contentful paint's hard, layout shift is hard, but I'm cool on input delay. And this year, Google figured out how to assess that tax. And so they figured out an interaction to next paint metric, which is, hey, somebody, because they're tracking real user behavior. They're tracking what's happening in a device when a user clicks, interacts, scrolls, and they're able to say, hey, that took 300 milliseconds and somebody felt that delay. They're able to track that now. That's not a position that folks felt like they had to keep up with, maybe that risk that having this or that framework or this different choice on the front end of their site was now going to start showing up in those metrics. And I've seen, panic is a strong word to use with a capital P, but there is a lot of concern because all of a sudden folks woke up, probably, I think it was October of last year, that started to get folded in as like, hey, here's an upcoming metric. Folks like, ooh, that one looks pretty red. Am I going to be ready for this? And a lot of folks aren't. And you could draw a really clear line between the choice of single page app, React, Next, those type of libraries. You can optimize those and you can make those really, really fast. But that's very rarely the outcome of starting to adopt those more heavyweight frameworks. It does feel like, and there was a lot of sort of angst and consternation I heard from folks at the conference this week, feels like they've found a way now to penalize React-like apps. And by the they, Google search engine rankings, they're saying, you guys need to be real careful about the way you deliver your e-commerce applications. And that's what we wanted to make sure we were ready for. And we wanted to make sure that starting from late last year, we're starting to skate where the puck was going to be. And we were reconsidering the way that we delivered content to the front end of our sites. So nerding out a little bit more deeply on the way our platform works and the way we've historically managed front end content and delivering that to the site, we rolled out a product a couple years ago called the Core Web Vitals Accelerator. And that was designed to help folks on the Core Web Vitals at the time. There was never a layout shift with our platform. And because of our use of image acceleration technologies from Akamai and our ability to auto assess the right width sizes of all that imagery, you put imagery in the platform, the right thing's going to happen on the right device. So we're a huge benefit for largest contentful paint and layout shift. And because JavaScript wasn't heavily penalized, the fact that we did have JavaScript that would come along and install all the interactions and animations and other effects that were necessary for our platform to be really dynamic, that wasn't a cost. That wasn't part of what you would need to accelerate back then. What we needed to reconsider starting last year was like, hey, this is coming. This is going to be a performance cliff for anyone who's using JavaScript on the client. And so the major architectural overhaul we did with the most recent release, and shout out to you, particularly for naming on this release, because our internal code name was Shake It Off. We wanted to shake off the baggage of a very JavaScript heavy delivery mechanism. As we went from under the hood, a lot of React frameworks were what we would bundle together to add our interactivity. We reduced the amount of JavaScript that we put on sites by 99.9%. There is no thinner way to deliver effects, animations, interactivity than what we do. When we publish, it is exactly what you see in the canvas that you designed with. It's exactly that interface. You can inspect the HTML that we put in a page and the HTML that's live in the canvas. They're literally the same things. So pure WYSIWYG. And on top of that, we layer, I'm not kidding, a couple thousand lines of JavaScript total. That is an order of magnitude, 2 orders of magnitude smaller than any JavaScript framework that you would be using. And we just bundle that in because we know, hey, this experience someone created, it needs exactly these animations, exactly these interactions. Add that on top of the WYSIWYG that you get from Canvas. and you have the tightest, crispest possible application. You could not hand code something that's fewer lines of code. And you could think about it, and this is the final thing I'm going to say before I start nerding out. I'm like nerd out, techno futuristic excited about this because it's like the realization of the what you were hoping the web would develop into as we were building performance tooling in the 2000s. You could think of it as this transition from everybody was hand coding things in assembler, and it was real hard to do that effectively to get things live to sites or to applications quickly, to, well, we're a compiler now. We're going to give you the tightest, crispest way for you to build applications really, really quickly, but to know this thing is optimized beyond what you could hand code. And it's a really, really exciting place to be, that I don't think there's been a technology yet for delivering content to the web that was able to say that.
I agree. I agree. I think it's actually jaw-dropping when we actually show, side by side tests. We take a customer's existing page on, on their site, and the current experience and the load time, and then we actually show them in Fastr the difference. It is remarkable, and it's visible, and you can actually see our customers' jaws drop. So it's really incredible. I just want to give a shout out to you. I mean, I think being ahead of the curve on this with, what was happening with Google, with the algorithm change and the penalties that they were bringing around, some of the JavaScript and the React frameworks and such. I mean, you were ahead of this and thinking about it and really innovating. And if you think about like interaction to next paint, and interaction and making a site super fast, if you're in a store, if you're in a site for a brand, it's going to be an interactive experience, and you want to deliver a super responsive, site experience, a super fast experience, make it personalized, make it dynamic. And so I think this metric and what you've been able to really innovate, it's really remarkable. I think we're way ahead of the curve. And I would say if anyone's interested that's listening to this, just put us to the test. Give us a page. We'll run it through Fastr, and we'll show you, how much of a difference we can make. It's been incredible. And so I think you've been ahead of the curve. There are other things coming. And so I think you continue to impress, Ryan. I think, you're thinking about performance and thinking about the experience of a visitor and a customer in ways I don't think anyone else is. So super well done. Shout out to you and your whole team. So maybe to kind of take it home from here, we kind of shift into, where do you think things are heading? We're certainly at a moment where it's very impressive what we can do, and there's some more innovation on the horizon. But let's just shift now to like, where do you think, where do you think things are heading? I know we can't predict that, and no one can kind of predict it, but where do you think this goes in the future? What's top of mind? What are you thinking about innovating around? And maybe just tease out a couple things that you're thinking on the roadmap.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest trends that I heard at CMS Connect, and one of the things that we've certainly observed from our customer base, is just the excitement around personalization, search, and merchandising. We're seeing this just real evolving understanding that the product landing page, the category page, that's the discovery moment on your site for a lot of customers. And that's going to exist whether you're delivering content to a desktop, to a mobile device, to a Apple Vision Pro, because I'm still a true believer that augmented reality moment is coming where you're going to be wearing your glasses and I'm going to see, and that's a pretty cool black shirt you're wearing. I'd be interested in knowing what products like that are available. Sure, sometimes that means I'm going to want to buy the exact thing that I'm looking at, but odds are what I'm going to want to have is some choice and say like, oh, that's a good jumping off point for maybe these 5 related products that I would want to see. And so there are really cool, really exciting vendors doing great things on that search and merchandising perspective. Search Spring, Algolia, Bloomreach, they have great technology. None of it matters if you can't get it to clients in a differentiated way. If you can't get it to clients, maybe you want to put that in different parts of a site. You want to tell experiential stories in a blog, or you want to serve things coming in from a TikTok ad or other social avenues of discovery, but you want to have that control of like, hey, I want to make sure the first product somebody sees is one that's relevant to them, is one that's available now, is one that based on what I know about that shopper's patterns or what folks like this shopper are doing, that's going to resonate with them and in a way that is organic, not salesy, but that then you can iterate on and change as trends happen, or as you see something from your analytics that tells you a different story about that shopper. And that does come back to some of the need for that AI informed ability to take that sort of instant response, instant delivery to your channels, to collapse that time down to minutes, if not seconds. You are going to have to be able to move that fast on top of everything that's in your e-commerce ecosystem to harness all of that, get that into every channel immediately. And that is frankly terrifying for historical ways of delivering sites, because the world just doesn't work like that yet. And so I think there's a huge amount of pressure now on developer frameworks, developer enablement, everything that is sort of wed to that historical way of delivering sites. I don't know how it keeps up. And that's where I'm so excited about what we have, because it breaks that entire dependence and really lets you move at that speed of both what a human can think and what we can get from an AI. I'll say thinking, but giving us its really close approximation to thinking about what you can deliver to your site.
Yeah, I agree. You're exactly right. As always, I think, you know, the future is now and the future is here, but the future is going to continue to move towards deeply personal experiences, deeply dynamic experiences, and to deliver that personalization and that dynamic experience to customers, to visitors, even if they're not buying on your site, they're just going there for product discovery or brand discovery. To deliver that is going to require a different architecture, a different set of tools to make that a very fast and responsive and interactive experience. And so I'm thrilled that we're kind of in the middle of this and innovating it and actually leading the charge as well. So, but I think you're exactly right. It's just going to continue to kind of lean in that direction. AI is going to bring a whole new set of tool sets to personalize and to make those, you know, dynamic experiences. So having something at the front end of that to really orchestrate and deliver a really modern, high performance, you know, front end experience is super important. So that's where we live. That's right where we are. Okay, so just to wrap up, let's you know, turn it back to you. Just give everyone just a couple of tangible things that they can do today to really you know, lean into this moment and to help with, you know, site speed, page performance, and everything we've talked about today. So any parting words of advice?
Yeah, I think for folks who haven't wrestled with interaction to next paint yet, for folks who are still scared of that metric, still coming to terms with it, you do need to reevaluate your choices for front end delivery technology. I see tons and tons of sites that they're still using JavaScript frameworks, or they still have a bunch of JavaScript that's blocking, that's loading at the top of the page. They're still using jQuery from 2008. They're still really, really heavyweight pages. You weren't penalized on that a year ago. You are penalized on that right now. And so now's the moment to say, like, look, we've got to do a full site audit. We got to go through and see what is really critical. Absolutely, you want your analytics. Absolutely, you want to be tracking what is working for you if folks are coming in from TikTok or other vendors. But you need to be making sure that line by line, data JavaScript by JavaScript, what are we doing on our site? What are we doing with our pages? Because that's become just as important as any of the network optimizations that a nerd like me would have spent the whole 2000s talking about. You got a different class of problems right now. And so that's where everybody's living. It's major, painful, potential site re-architecture of what you're going to do on your front end. And no one's able to save you from that unless you're able to really reconsider what you're doing on your pages. Just takes that level of forensics, analytics, and that has roadmap implications. You're going to need to reconsider the campaigns you're running, what you're looking to do with your e-commerce site, or bringing in the next 5 vendors. If each one of them is going to add more and more of a toll, more and more of a cost, you got to weigh that really heavily and understand what you're going to be able to do reasonably without penalizing those scores.
Great advice. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. So listen, this has been a great discussion. Before everybody drops, I want to leave everyone with an offer as well. I think that was some great advice, hopefully tangible, that folks can think about. So Ryan, I want to thank you today, certainly for your time. These are always great discussions when we have them internally. So it's nice to have one that folks externally can listen in on. What we've just released over the last couple of weeks is like super exciting. And again, kind of a jaw-dropping moment. So again, thank you for the time today, Ryan, and thank you everybody for listening. This has been great. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.